Hello, creative friends. I hope you're doing well. I have another blobbity floral painting for you today. So if you've watched my last video, I basically did or took the same approach, meaning that I am dropping spots of colors, which I call blobs, and with multiple colors, and then just let it dry. And once it's dry, I can read into what's on the paper and just make shapes appear, either by painting over the blobs or accentuating or making the colors more vivid, or by using a negative painting approach. And you'll see all that as the video unfolds. It's a little bit different than the previous video that I presented to you, in that I have mapped out in my head where the flowers would be. So when I blobbed, I sort of knew where to place the colors, if that makes sense. It's not entirely planned, but I had a good inkling as to how I wanted that painting to look. The colors that I am using will be listed in the description below, as well as in a pinned comment, and also the brushes that I'm using and all that. As I was editing this video, I realized that my process is kind of all over the place, because I don't do things in the order that would normally come to most people, meaning that I don't paint all the flowers and then paint the background and then add accents or whatever. I'm painting a flower right now, and of course this has had time to dry, right? I'm painting this flower, and I think right after that I'm going to start on the background. So I do whatever comes naturally to me, And also I do what I feel like doing. And because this painting was spread out over a period of 2 weeks, so obviously it didn't take me 2 weeks to paint, but I did a little bit here and there. And that's probably why my process doesn't follow a normal pattern, I guess. But also sometimes it helps to jump to another area because it gave me a different perspective. So what I mean by that is, excuse me, if I'm doing all the flowers and in my mind something's not quite right, or I'm not able to see the big picture, or even I'm not able to see if my composition is correct, I will add color to the background, and that helps define some of the objects that need to be painted in a negative way, meaning painting around the shape, or zhuzh a little bit the contrast, because contrast is, I feel anyways, it's very important in a painting. So in that respect, I'm kind of all over the place. So because of that, I couldn't really define the chapters of this video. So my apologies if you're the kind of person that looks for a specific spot in a video for a specific technique. It won't happen this time around because I am all over the place. Also, I have changed my mind quite a few times. This flower that I'm painting will have a different look altogether by the end of the video, because basically it was the only one that had petals that were separated that way. So I'm going to turn it into something that resembles all the other flowers. And yes, I did not sketch everything in advance. At this point, I have sketched a few of the flowers. Sometimes I don't even sketch and I just paint around what I think I should reveal. But again, that's part of my process, a process that is not, it doesn't follow any specific order. That keeps it fun too for me. If I don't feel like sketching, then I'll just go ahead and maybe pattern into a shape. Or if I don't feel like doing anything too precise, I'll jump to the background. So it just keeps it fun for me. And it's the type of painting that you can actually do that very easily, because there's quite a few elements and process within that painting. There's the background. There's also some accents in the background that are painted negatively. There's patterning. And of course, there's cold at the end. So it was quite fun. I really do enjoy this type of painting. I have done 3 so far with the same color palette. And so I seem to have a little bit of a series going on here, which is cool. But I think my next painting, if it's a floral, because I haven't decided yet. If it's the same process and it's a floral, I'll probably change my color scheme, but we'll see. So these flowers, I call them pods because that's what they remind me of. It's kind of like a bowl-shaped flower, and the inside is kind of hollow except for the stamen. Is that what we call it? The middle of the flower where you have the little dots. And so because they are shaped like a bowl, the inside, in my mind anyways, should be darker than the outside. And that's why I usually start with the center. And then I bring it to some kind of a darkness that I feel is okay. And that sort of dictates what intensity of color I'm going to paint on the inside, the outside of the flower. And you know, sometimes it's difficult to judge how light I need to go, because the background at this point is not painted. And obviously I didn't want to have light next to light. I wanted a good contrast. So it's probably at that time that I realized, oh, maybe I should start painting the background just to help out. I'm adding a darker color towards the bottom of that flower, and also a bit to the sides, because I wanted to have some sort of a two-dimensional effect. So shading at the bottom makes sense. It indicates the circle shape, or the, is it circle? Yeah, or the roundness of the flower. This process is an acquired technique, I guess. Basically, you just make sure that you don't have hard lines. So I do that by adding a darker color over on a wet surface, and then just blending the dark into the light. And you know, it's kind of like a back and forth game, if you will. It just takes practice. I've done that before, and I've explained that technique before as well. Now, these blue bubbles, I guess they could be called berries, but in my mind they're also flowers. They are not specific. None of these flowers are as similar to what you would find in true nature, by the way. These are straight out of my imagination. They might resemble something, but I don't think they are. I went overboard with these flowers and the dots. So you'll see how I'm able to pull that back. I felt that big area of blue bubbles at the top was way too much, and I knew if I was going to keep on going or keep them as they are right now, I would have a problem with the composition. So after I have finished painting all this, I am lifting the colors. And for this I'm using this shader brush that I've talked about before. And also these little dots were just way too much, so they're not going to disappear completely, but at the end you're probably not going to see all these dots. And also, so there's like 3 clumps right now. This one at the far right, I'm going to push it back by adding a mix of Prussian green with Jaune Brilliant number 1. Jaune Brilliant is rather opaque, so what that's going to do is it's going to add that layer over the blue. Again, it's not meant to completely eradicate them, but it will push those back and they won't be so dark, and I think it helps with the balance of everything. And they're gonna turn into some kind of a ghostly flowers, which is fine. There will also be other items that will be in the background, and I've done that by painting negatively, but also using darker colors to have some of those items recess. I will explain as it comes along. Sometimes I have a hard time explaining what I'm doing, so hopefully the what you're seeing is a better explanation than what I'm saying. I've also introduced a spot of a brighter green in the right hand corner, and also I think at the bottom, no, on the right hand side. So the 2 corners at the top will be lighter than the middle. And I don't know, for me, because I have this Jaune Brilliant happening as well, and there's a bit of white left alone, It gives it that nice ethereal kind of look. I don't know. You tell me what you think, but I really like the effect that it gave. So here's the time when I decided to introduce a darker color. I'm going around the leaf that I have sketched. And again, not the entire painting has been sketched at that point. I just focused on one area. I do that also sometimes. Instead of like planning everything or sketching everything, I rather focus on one area, because otherwise if I keep thinking all the time about the whole picture, it just seems too daunting to me, and my ADHD brain just goes, no, it's too much, and then I stop working. So if I focus on one area at a time, it does help. Oh, this part was the most fun for me. So this is when I started using negative painting. I wanted to have thin branches in the background. So I did that by leaving some white space in between that green color without tracing anything. I just went willy-nilly. I don't know if it's the right word for it, but I just basically left these white sticks here and there. Like I don't know how to talk. I'm sorry. It's late at night and I don't do well with voiceovers, but I think you know what I mean. So it created basically sections, and I wasn't paying attention too much at this point to making sure that the colors were consistent between these spaces. I was just basically dropping colors. This is something that I can correct later on. So just at that time, it was just like making sure that I leave those white spaces to have these thin branches. I also added light green pods. In my mind, they're just buds. Buds of what? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to have green buds for orange or violet flowers. So they're just buds. And I think the introduction of this light color versus the orange and the purple and the background will add interest to the painting, as opposed to my last video. The one thing that I've noticed is that the leaves and the flowers were kind of like of the same intensity, and that bothered me a little bit. Not enough to say, ugh, I don't like this painting, but it kind of bothered me. So that's why I added these buds, these light green buds. I like them. I think they're fun. So, and because I had more elements painted at that point, I felt like I needed to bring that blue bubble branch at the bottom as well. And that really helped with the composition. I have to say that the composition of this painting is much better than the previous one, in my opinion anyways. There's a lot of elements though on it. It was fun to do. Really, really fun. And I wanted those to be more painterly than the main flowers. Again, that adds to the multi-dimensional aspect of the painting. At some point I was getting confused about what is a flower and what is a leaf. So in order to help myself, I decided to add lines to the leaves. And I actually drew them with my pencil. Yeah, that just helps bring them forth a little bit, and that way I was able to concentrate on painting the background. Not sure if I've mentioned that. Maybe I did. I'm losing track. But the background will be built with several layers of paint. And at the point where I'm at right now, I've noticed that I forgot to leave white spaces for the thin branches because I have them at the top. It made sense for me to have them at the bottom as well. So what I ended up doing is giving a first coat of paint and then going back with another layer and leaving the spaces that I needed on that second layer. And what that did is that it created depth because these thin branches, or you can call them thin tall grass, I guess, will be in different colors. And I think I did that in 2 or 3 layers, so you have like a multiple effect, like a multiple layer effect. And just to make sure that I wouldn't forget, I sketched some of these. So at the top I didn't sketch anything because I wanted to keep it fairly light, but at the bottom I knew I was going to add darker colors, so it didn't matter if I sketched them in advance. That line that I sketched will disappear. And I think the background is the area where I had to work the most at because I wanted to make sure that 2 adjacent sections would be the same color, at least close to the separating element, for instance the tall grass, because I didn't want, like I didn't want a patchwork effect. Because obviously I'm going from dark to light in the background, the merging effect or the blending effect has to happen within an open shape. So I needed to carry, let's say I have dark on the left and I on the right adjacent to that, I was going to slowly blend into a lighter color. I needed to carry that dark color over to the other side for a little bit. I hope this makes sense. I've explained this probably better in the previous video, but yeah. So that is, I would say, the only tricky part of the process, because it's not always easy to have the same intensity of color and then blending it in such a way that it doesn't look like a cutout, you know? Yeah, that's essentially what I need to say. I'm really not good at voiceovers. I always procrastinate too. It's 1:44 a.m. So I had some other things to do. I had a good excuse, but it wasn't work related. Yeah. You know, it's I can tell that I don't like doing some things art related when I prefer to wash dishes or do laundry. Anywho, I was quite puzzled as to what color I was going to use for the leaves because there's so much green in the background. Although the green I'm using is mostly Prussian green, so it's kind of like a bluish green, but I did have to use blue just because it was just too similar. Like I knew I was going to get into trouble in choosing the color for the leaves. Now, for the lines of these leaves, I have used Moonglow, which is a violet color. Again, in order to avoid to have so much green in the background. It doesn't really show a lot, but I think it made a difference. More than the larger leaves, I had a hard time finding the color for these small ones, but I think I made it work. So it's a very diluted application of Prussian green. I don't think there's a lot left to do in this painting except the gold at the end. So yeah, so I think I'm going to leave you with some music until the end. How about that? Instead of just hearing me rambling on. Yeah, I think that's it. So I thank you very much for watching the video. I hope it inspires you to blob. Technical terms. Oh, maybe I should mention, yeah, I was out of inspiration for colors when it came to the veins on the small leaf, so I just decided to use my pencil. It worked. It kind of goes with the desaturated tone of those leaves. Yeah, it works. Okay, anyways, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of the video, and hopefully I will see you soon. I'm not being very consistent in terms of posting here on YouTube. I will not apologize because that's just the way life is right now. But, oh, yeah, something else. See, I'm not gone yet. Gosh. At this point, I was examining the background and I realized that the middle was still not dark enough. So sometimes it helps with the perspective or to look at your painting from afar. That gives you clues. And I darkened the center and forgot to press the record button. So now we're at the gold and now it is the end. So thank you so very much again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Put them in the comments and or any comments if you have them. I always like to hear from you. I hope you're going to have a fantastic day. Stay creative, and I will see you soon. Bye.